Now let's look at some nested if statements. Over here, the first statement I'm going to write is if x is less than 100. And under this, I'm going to put another if statement in. I'm going to say if x modulus 2 is equal to 0, result equals x is even. And then underneath here, I'm going to throw in elif statement in and say elif x mod 2 is equal to 1, result equals x is odd. And below that, all the way to the left side, I can throw in an else statement and put result equals x is greater than or equal to 100. And if I run this now, since x is less than 100, so this is going to be true, it's going to drop down to this block of code. And when it checks this one here, this is going to evaluate to false because 5 mod 2 is going to return 1. So this one here is going to evaluate to true, and result is going to be set to x is odd. And when I run this, we'll see that we get the output of x is odd. And if I were to change x to 6, run this again, we'll get the output that x is even. And if I were to change x to 100, none of this would evaluate to true, so our else statement will run. And we get x is greater than or equal to 100. And if I wanted to, I could go even deeper. I could throw in another if x is less than 10, result equals x is even and less than 10. And if I were to set x to 8 here and run this, we'll get the output x is even and less than 10. And we've now gone 3 if statements deep into our nesting. And whenever you are using if statements, be sure to keep track of your indentation, because if I were to put this else here and tab out this results, then this else is going to apply to this if statement here. So just keep track of that. As you can see, Visual Studio Code provides these handy little white lines to see where the indentation is. And another thing is, like you see right here, I can put as many tabs as I want. And if I were to make x equal 100 again, so that this else statement right here runs, if I run this, we'll see that x is greater than or equal to 100. It doesn't really care how much indentation there is. It could be all these spaces I have here. It could be one space. It's going to work just fine, but it has to have indentation after it. And the typical convention in Python is to have 4 spaces. So now let's look at the ternary operator. So I'm going to remove most of this here. And I am going to set result is equal to x if x is greater than y, else y. And what this is doing is it's basically checking to see which of these 2 variables here is higher. So if x is greater than y, then it's going to set the value of result to the value of x. And if not, so y would be greater than x, it would assign the value of y to result. But since x right now is 100 and y is 10, if I run this, we will get the output 100 because x is the greater number. And if I were to swap this around, so it's checking to see if x is less than y, which it's not, then it will assign the value of y to result. And when I run this, we'll see that we get the output of 10.